Hi guys, I have here a Mikrotik device, Mikrotik router board. Then the model is RB 2011 series, this one. Then let's configure this device later. But I'm going to show you first the Ethernet port. The port 6 to 10 is a fast Ethernet port. Ethernet 1 to 5 is a gigabit port, 1000 Mbps. The first Ethernet one is a PoE, so you can insert a PoE device here that with a HCP port. This port here is a fiber port, so you'll need a fiber port module like this one. This is a fiber port module, so you insert this here. Then you need a fiber patch cord, then connect to the switch. Then at the back of this device here, you will see you can insert there the power cord adapter. It is 10 to 28 volts. Then this one is for grounding. So now let us set up the device basic configuration like reads, DHCP server, firewall, NAT, bandwidth management, and VLAN. Okay, now let's access the device on the browser. So here by default there is already a default setup configuration on the device like the bridge, the member ports. By default all ports are member to the same bridge, and this IP address, the DHCP server with a address pool. So okay, let's reset the configuration to no default configuration. So this means that there will be no IP address bridge or any default settings for this device. So we can only access this via Winbox. We cannot access this on the browser. So let's now reset. Okay, the device now was reset. So let's try to access. So here we cannot access anymore. And here so here no IP address. Let's now access the device via the Winbox. Here. So we were able to connect to the device. Let's now configure the bridge, the IP address, and the DHCP server. Let's go first on bridge. Here we create. So let's create bridge for port 225. So here we can add. Let's reconnect. I was disconnected. We can click copy. So we have here the member of the bridge, and now let's put IP address to this bridge so we can access on the browser. So here, if we put on the interface bridge 2 to 5, this means that we can access the device from port 2 to 5. So if you plug your LAN cable from port 2 to 5, you can access the device with this IP address. Okay, let's access the device. But before that, we'll create a static IP to our Ethernet port because we don't have yet the DHCP server created. Let's access now. Here we were able to access the device, but we still don't have the DHCP server. Like this one, if we put like obtain, here we don't have the IP address. So now let's create the DHCP server so we can have can receive automatic IP address from the device. Here we click the IP, DHCP server, DHCP setup. So next, so this is our network 88. So next, gateway. This is the IP of the bridge. Here, let's start from 50 to 200. DNS, let's put this time will be 23 hours and 10 minutes. So now we have now the DHCP server named DHCP1 with a poll starting from 50 to 200. So let's rename this. Okay, we check our LAN settings. Let's make this automatic. Here we get IP address. Here. So this means that the HCP server is working on the Mikrotik. Let's now configure the firewall. IP firewall. So we'll add role. So chain forward and connection state. Establish new unrelated. This will be accept. So action accept here. click apply. Okay, so let's add another role for chain input. It forward is via the connection coming via the router, and input will be going to the router. So input, let's connection state here, related, new, and established, accept, apply. Okay, so add new role for forward with a connection state of invalid. So let's deny this, drop. So now we have created a basic firewall role. Okay, let's now configure the WAN settings. There are two ways to put a WAN on this device. We can hear the address DHCP client. So the Ethernet one will have an automatic IP address, or we can just have we can add here add ETH1 for a static IP address, so we can manually input the static IP. So let's do first the DHCP. So click here, add. Let's rename first the ETH1 so we can easily identify the device. So here, let's go to the client. So this will automatically get IP address from a router or a modem. It's okay. I will now plug a Ethernet cable to Ethernet 1. So here we get the IP address. Now we have set up the WAN interface with the automatic IP address coming from the ISP. So let's test the device if we can get or we can have internet. So let's go to terminal, ping. So we can see that we can ping the Google. But here's a thing, if we search Google here, we cannot access the internet. Here, this means that no internet access. So what happened here? This is because our connection is not NATed. So to fix the issue, let's go to firewall NAT. So let's create a NAT role, chain source NAT. So source address is the so anything from this IP subnet or network can have internet access. Is masquerade. So this means this will be NATed. So we click apply here. So now let's try to access Google. Okay, we have done the basic setup for our Mikrotik router, the DHCP server, the bridge, the firewall, and the NAT. So now let's configure first how to do static WAN connection to here. So since we are DHCP, so we can automatically get IP address and the routes here. We have system generated routes. So let's now remove this. Here, let's remove this. So we no longer have internet access. Let's now put a static connection. So here, address, add new, and the network is, so here is, then let's create a route, gateway. This is the IP of our modem, the ISP modem. So here, let's try to Google. Here, we can have internet now. Let's go now on bandwidth limit on this router. But before that, let's check first my internet connection. So here I have 60 plus Mbps for download and 72 plus Mbps for upload. Now let's go back to Mikrotik. Here at Mikrotik, I will make my download to 5 Mbps and upload to 10 Mbps. To do this, let's go first to IP, Firewall, and Mangle. Let's create a role here. Add new, chain pre-routing, source address, action, mark packet. So this is for upload. Let's call this app connection. Pre-routing means this is upload. I will explain it later. For download, it is post routing. So destination address, mark packet. So down. So we have now here a role for upload and download. Upload is pre-routing, download is post-routing. I'll show you a diagram. Here is the diagram. So here pre-routing, this means that upload. This is packets from your PC going to Mikrotik. So pre-routing means before the routing process occurred at the Mikrotik. So that is pre-routing. Then we identify that packet or we'll name that packet. So that's what happened here. So from your PC to going Mikrotik source address, then we mark that packet as app connection, just like putting a red color here. That is like labeling the connection. Then for post routing, it is from your Mikrotik. So routing has already done from your Mikrotik going to PC. So this that connection. So here post routing. So destination address from your Mikrotik is going to PC. Then we mark that packet down connection, just like putting a green color here. You label that connection. So that's the explanation of this rule. This is not the actual bandwidth limit. This is just identifying the packet. The actual bandwidth limit is at queues. So here, Q3, we will create a role here for the bandwidth limit. Now let's add a rule. Let's name this for upload. So up limit parents global, then mark packet. So the packet that we mark, that is the up connection for upload. Then limit here, the max limit is upload is 10 MB. So 10 M means mega. K is kilo, bits, megabits. So click apply. Okay. So that is for upload. Then download. Mark packet, down connection. Then max limit to 5 megabits. Click apply. Then okay. Now let's test the connection. Now here, the role that we created for download and upload is working. Let's go back to Mikrotik. There is another way of limiting your bandwidth with the use of PCQ, that is on Mikrotik PCQ. Let's try to search that. So here's the example of using PCQ bandwidth management. First example is you have 4 Mbps. Then if you have 2 users, they only got 128K per user. They did not consume the whole bandwidth. Then if you have user, it will be divided. Then this will consume the whole bandwidth. Then for 7 user, divided again. For the second sample, you have 4 Mbps. For 1 user, it will consume the whole bandwidth. For 2 users, it will divide the whole bandwidth. And then if you have 7 users, this will divide also. So these are the 2 examples. There are many other ways of using PCQ on bandwidth management, but we will not work this example here to our Mikrotik. I will let you do the research, or maybe I will make a separate video to this. Now let's go back to our Mikrotik. So the bandwidth management is done. Let's now proceed on Mikrotik VLAN. Let's close this first. I will show you a diagram how we will do the Mikrotik VLAN. here's a sample of how we will create the VLAN on our Mikrotik. Let's go first on the manage suites. So I hope you are familiar already of how to create a VLAN on a managed suites. So here we have two VLAN. This means that this these are two separate network. For VLAN 10, this is the network, and for the VLAN 20, this is the network. So with this DHCP address. So at the Mikrotik, we will create the VLAN port at Ethernet 6. So if you're familiar with the VLAN already, a short review, when you create a VLAN and then you create a multiple network, you must have a trunk port on that VLAN because a trunk port will carry data across the network nodes of multiple VLAN. So here we have two networks with this one port only. This will pass the network to the switch and going to the trunk port. That's how VLAN works. Now let's go back to Mikrotik and we will create this diagram. So here at Mikrotik, to create a VLAN, we'll just go to interface, then VLAN. But I have trouble creating VLAN on the web browser. I will do this at the Winbox. Here at Winbox, let's create the VLAN. Add VLAN 10. So at interface Ethernet 6. So let's rename this Ethernet to interface. So here interface, so Ethernet 6. We just rename the interface so we can easily identify. Then this is very important, the VLAN ID. So if you have VLAN ID of 10, your switch VLAN is also the same here, the ID. Apply. Okay. Add. So this is a new interface. This means we can put IP address to this interface. So let's create the IP address. But I will do this at browser. Here, IP address, or you can also do this at here, IP address. Add. For VLAN 10, IP address is this is VLAN 10. So we now have IP address on VLAN 10. Then let's create for VLAN 20. Add. Now we now have IP address to our VLAN. Then just like the bridge 2 to 5, we can also create network here on VLAN. So let's go to DHCP server, then DHCP setup, interface VLAN 10, next, then DHCP address pool, this is correct, and gateway the VLAN IP, then the address. Based on this diagram, we have 50 to 150. So this is the range of IP that this VLAN DHCP server will give. Then list time 12 hours. So now we have the VLAN 10 created. And the VLAN 20, here 50 to 150. $12. This means 12 hours if this one is 2 hours. So a little correction here. This is not 12 hours. This is 2 hours. So let's make this 12 hours. So here we have created the VLAN, and don't forget to create to not this create a role to not to in order to be able this to connect to the internet. So firewall not, then add new role source not source address. So anything from this IP can have internet, so masquerade, so not this IP. Click apply. Okay, same for 20. So now we have completed the VLAN creation. If you like the video, then don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks.